Yo, sup guys? I hope everyone's having a damn good day. It's Tello here. Much love to you. I hope you guys enjoyed that last video. I know it's a different style of videos I am doing, only for, I guess, this mini-series of the drama going on between Narc and Steven Sharif, and, with the Asmongold interview, and then they had Thor at the end as well. So in today's video, we're going to go over the Narc segment of basically the response after Steven when he put his video out, the one I was going over yesterday, and we're gonna break this down into bits and go over everything from Asmon's VOD to talk about key highlight points that I think is very important for context for you guys to understand where, Narc is coming from, where I'm coming from on this situation as well, how I feel about Narc's responses as being a playtester for the alpha as well, and give you my honest review on how I genuinely think Narc is thinking in his state of mind at the current time, and we go from there. So let's get into it.
So the thing is, if anyone who's actually played the game, knows the truth, right? Because they've been to the desert, they know the state of the desert.
Well, how do you reconcile that with people like Pirate Software who have played the game a lot, who show that that's not the case?
I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea what's going through Pirate's head.
Now, I believe Narc, what he's saying right here is that he's basically implying that the gamers know the truth. If you are playtesting the current, version of Ashes of Creation, you go to these areas. There's really nothing to do in these spots. They're not, developed, obviously as of yet. But obviously we know as the gamers, like the actual alpha testers, that this has already been communicated and discussed on how these nodes will progress, especially through the progression playtest that we're in right now. We are currently in a progression phase where we are expanding upon the deserts, and in the next couple months, more and more POIs should be added to these desert locations, so we can actually, go ventured forward through this node and, see more things to do, more things to interact with, more stuff to harvest. So we know this already as players. That's the actual truth. That's the reality of it. We already understand this already. I think personally what Narc is, his issue is here is that he expected everything from the showcase and the things that they've been highlighting, the dungeons, the statues, the figurines, all these different little POIs to be in the game already without being tested or have to be worked on a back end kit or like a dev client or whatever. I think he expected all these things to be in the game off the rip, 100% tested with no player interaction, and it's just working and it's there for, the players to be involved with. I think that's what he expected. And unfortunately, I don't think those expectations for him were met, and that's why he's upset about this situation.
What would you say exists, quote unquote exists? Is it the trees?
Well, yeah, the developed landscape that they showed in the trailer. Okay. It's this empty desert. Because that's what you're comparing it with. But if you look at the video itself and you see inside of the game, it does seem like that's what the game looks like.
I agree that the rocks exist.
But do you see how if you do that and then you show this image of a completely unfinished area, it's going to give people the impression that the entire desert is also unfinished?
Well, you've got to use the context that you got to acknowledge the context that I've already made a 20-minute video showing off this section of the desert that Steven's currently showing off.
So that
I've already done this.
Okay, that's fine. So what you're saying is that inside of this video, though, that context doesn't exist. Because if there's a previous video where you've explained it, so then you can see why people would be confused, right?
So at this part of the video, Narc is basically having issues with how the desert is being presented. Not that the fact that the trees and rocks and the landscape obviously exists, like the basic foundation, but how the speed and execution of things that he saw from the showcase are not there. And I can understand that maybe as a customer or consumer, you are upset with the product that you have at the current time. I understand as a playtester that these things are going to be developed in the next couple months because they already communicated that fact that the node progression is happening. And I believe what they're doing, in my opinion, is testing out the different ways they are interconnecting these nodes with other nodes and every other part of the map itself, and especially with players, actual live players playing the game, so they could test these things to make sure these foundations are strong going into preparation of phase 3 when the game comes out. So I understand that there is a serious testing period that has yet to be still discovered, because we're still only in January January, and that testing and node progression and growth of the desert is going from January all the way till May. So the things that he even shown in his video, his older video, the context was from older footage showcased in a previous dev showcase talking about desert expansion, and was not concurrent footage of the desert and how things are working in the current playtest when he made that video. So he clearly admits to that in the Asmon, response in the interview that they are doing.
So like I've gone through a lot of betas and demos for games before. And I know that, like, for example, like there are many games that have cut content or they don't fully show the game whenever it's ready. And I think also there are cases where like big components of a game are not being added in until like later on in the future. So I think if a game is in an alpha state, like every single image that you see inside, I think this is what your impression is, right? Is that every single image that you saw on these previews, you expected to be in the alpha.
It's not the current state of the desert. The desert probably didn't even exist at this point, because the desert doesn't exist now. Oh, no. Not just that specific. I would say everything in this trailer.
And I think everything that's going on here is Asmon is explaining to him that this is how cut content works from games. And a lot of other games in general that I've even been a part of, where I've seen content that is either cut out, or you could tell there's like an invisible wall, or there's an area over there that needs to be expanded upon or worked upon, or they can grow something there, is not ready to be implemented as of yet. And just because that asset is not clearly being shown from the game, or was only shown in a preview, doesn't mean that that asset does not exist. And that's what the whole point of the roadmap is for this, next couple months, is to progress the nodes, is to grow upon the desert expansion. So we already know this as playtesters. This is what we already expect, and we're not taking it too serious. So kind of seeing from, Narc's point of view right now, where it seems like just once again, he's more mad about the speed and execution of things, and he expected everything that he saw on the buy and preview to already be in the game day one when this phase just started.
In the alpha, what the freehold is, it's just a static asset with a fence and a house that's randomized seemingly. I'm not quite sure how I think it's just a randomly generated house.
Yeah.
Then you walk up to it and then you purchase it for 20 gold or 50 gold, and then it's supposed to have the ability to plant trees, but
so
I received a bunch of reports.
So, like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, so, do you think they're not going to finish it, or like, because I feel like that's like a textbook example of something that they clearly have. This is the rudimentary version of it, and they're going to put more of it into the game, right?
So you'd think they'll be much farther along than what they showed in 2 years, and we spent hundreds of dollars to support it. But now it's seemingly only just being rolled out. But I think that's what a lot of my community are discontent about, and it's why I don't really feel like, what I feel like, Asmon, is I feel like I've lied to people for 4 years.
So this is an interesting thing here, because now Narc is basically getting at that freeholds are really nothing, and you could purchase them, but you really can't do anything with them, which is actually false. You can actually plant on freeholds. You can get resources from freeholds. That is not entirely true. Yes, there was some bugs, and there are still ongoing issues that happened during the playtest with freeholds, and obviously those things get reported upon. But even Steven said in a response to this, you can upgrade these freeholds to different tiers to have access to new things that you can do at your freeholds. So that is not entirely true what Narc is talking about. Yes, when I say entirely, do note, because at the end of the day, there is more progression to do with freeholds during the playtest progression. This is node progression. This is freehold progression. They're also doing progression, even the player stalls as well. So there is a lot of things in this particular playtest that are still being conducted for testing for them to see what is working and what is not working, so they can figure these things out and come up with better solutions. So I unfortunately have to disagree with Narc there in that situation. On top of what he's saying that, now for the past couple of years, he feels like he's been lying to his player base. I don't think he's been lying to his player base at all. I think he's been, showcasing everything for Ashes of Creation and the things that, he enjoys making content for and what he's been working on. And that's what, the game is currently at the the moment we're in. So I don't think he's really lying to anybody. I just think the way he went about in his video and how he personally feels is a little outlandish in my opinion, and how he's kind of having this like outburst. I think it's more from an emotional state of like, anger, and also in a state of just wishing he did something else with his time rather than only focus on Ashes of Creation. I personally think that's the truth of it, and I think we're going to get to the bottom of that here soon when he mentions a couple things.
I mean, if it was free, nothing would matter, right? If it was free, then thumbs up. I'll be pogging out if it was free.
Okay, so you're primarily upset about the price of the alpha, and you feel like that the alpha for the price of it isn't giving you what you thought that you spent your money for. Is that pretty much it?
What's happened? Yeah. I feel, just for context as well, is that I didn't actually pay any money.
Okay.
Someone I used to know actually donated me a key back in Alpha 1.
All right, so here's where now I'm getting a little bit more confused. You didn't purchase the game. So now I need to know, what are you truly upset about? Regardless of speed and execution of what they're supposed to deliver in an alpha of a developer game showing open development on what the development process takes in order to make an MMO, which nobody in your comment section or in my comment section or in Asmon's comment section or in Thor's or Steve, whoever, has experience of. So what are you upset about? You never spent $1 on the game. Your time is not really wasted. It can't be time because you have a successful YouTube channel. You've done great content. You made people laugh and happy and have good times, and you talked about a lot of interesting things regarding Ashes. You have a successful YouTube career. What are you upset about? I think personally, you have a more personal issue going on with Ashes of Creation, and you as a YouTube creator more than anything, than it being the fault of Ashes of Creation. And I'm just going to call it out and say what that is, because that's understandable. Because I know what that's like. You know, when I was playing Season of Discovery, and I was playing SOD, and SOD wasn't doing well, I was upset with the style of content I was doing towards the end of it. I didn't like how things came off negative, where things felt like it was always kind of shit-talking. Where in the beginning and towards the middle of my SOD career, I was just like happy as fuck. I was all jolly. And I was just like having a good-ass time. Until, like, you know, things were going to shit. So I can understand maybe, you know, the resentment of, like, where you're putting your entertaining aspects of who you are as a person in certain areas of content creation. But I don't think that has nothing to do with Ashes of Creation in an open development game. With showing the insides of what development does and how long it takes and the process of making an MMO out of all games. Which you know is one of the hardest things to develop than any other game. And how many resources and time and money and man hours it requires to make the game. I don't think now at this point it is an Ashes of Creation issue. I think this is a Narc issue.
I mean, do you think they're going to finish the game? Like, I mean, so because you said at one point that it was like fakery, and then at another point you said that it was not a scam. So like, where do you think the game is going to go?
So I think they're falsely advertising the current state of the game. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, they've been falsely advertising the current state of the game to make funding, to help fund their game. So what I said in the quote that I used was, "This isn't open development; it's funding at any cost." If you had known that, would you still have the same perception of the video game from 2 years ago?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Absolutely. I've seen how a lot of games have been developed over the years, and I think this is very common. And what I understand is that the interconnectivity of different systems causes a bunch of problems that exist inside of an ecosystem of other systems. So when somebody shows me a system inside of like its own ecosystem, like for example the Freehold, and I see that just by itself, I'm viewing that as like, this is what the finished product is supposed to look like. And I wouldn't necessarily expect to see that in the game immediately, because maybe that isn't contextualized and developed around all of the other systems it's supposed to fit into. It's like kind of you're showing like a finished piece of a jigsaw puzzle, but you need to make sure that all of the other pieces around it also are finished in order for the pieces to fit together.
So for me right now, this is where Asmon really like hits the hammer, you know, on the nail pretty damn hard, because I understand where he's coming from when it comes to, like, you know, the jigsaw analogy and what he's getting at. Because me as a person who's been involved right? Especially within IT for like 7+ years. I understand what it's like to see like a finalized project be done and have the vision in place, just for that to either get scratched or scrapped up and we have to rework on it all over again because we got to the finalized product, but everything before it had issues and problems along the way. Basically a fork in the road, or objects, blocking you from your end destination, where if you don't fix the things along the way or find solutions and problems to those, errors, the finalized product doesn't matter. You have to basically fix the backbone and structure of everything working to make the finalized, solution be a modern solution, right? To whatever problem it is, or whatever, issue you're dealing with, or to whatever vision that you want to be completed. So I totally understand what he's getting to when it comes to, how basically things are developed, especially within games, and how there is going to be problems, and there's going to be, concepts and things that are going to be showcased, but those things are not going to be ready yet until everything else on the back end is ready for it. I really think that was a good way for him to express that. But at the same time, on top of like, what Narc is saying, whether, the game is a scam or not, this is something that I was confused about, especially what he was talking about in his goodbye video, where I was confused, even in my yesterday response, where I was like, well, what are you saying? Is the game a scam? Is it not a scam? Do you have like proof that this is a scam? Like, where are you getting at? And I really feel like, once again, this is more of just a personal bias thing that Narc has with, more than anything, Steven Sharif, rather than just even Ashes of Creation at this point. And I really feel like that his response to this, the more he has been handling it, the more I'm seeing through the cracks of his armor.
I don't think, this is what I'm saying, I don't think Intrepid were open about the fact that what they showed was not the current state of the video game. They in fact did the very opposite and said that this is the current state of the video game. In that very live stream, I can bring a context, in that very live stream, we had the devs talking about the fact that how there's this dungeon that exists in the desert, and it's this underground dungeon with snake people in it, and they showed those snake people models. They showed those models,
yeah,
and they said there's this underground dungeon, it's full of lava, it's been crystallized. This was 2 years ago. So if they're talking about it in that detail, then it exists.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist, but it's 2 years later, and now that doesn't exist. So what happened to that underground lava dungeon that they were going on about?
So once again, we're on this like subject of what is true and what's not true, what's behind door number 1, what's behind door number 2. And I understand Narc wants these things extremely, fast. It really seems like he expects these things in a timely order, and it has to meet a criteria so people can really continue in the belief of Ashes of Creation. I get where Narc is coming from, and as a customer's perspective, a lot of customers think with different minds as well. When you see a product and you own a product, you expect the most out of it, and some people have different, opinions, and that's why there's different reviews on every, product in the world. Some people feel one way about like for example, Poland Spring. They might think it's the best water. Some people feel like it's dog shit and they can improve on it. I think it's the cream of the crop. I love it. However, though, settle down. What I'm talking about is I really feel like that, Narc is just, he's more upset more than anything, and I can understand that. But once again, I think his video, in my opinion, it could have been more impactful if that was at the end of May in particular, and nothing happened from the deserts. We didn't get no desert expansion. We didn't get no dungeons implemented within the desert. We had no new mobs in the desert, no harvestable materials, no node progression whatsoever, especially in like the dune, areas of the map where there's just really, obviously at the current moment, still assets to be built upon. I think there could have been a stronger argument being made at that time, but we're not at that time. So you did it so early in the portion of when the development is actually going to occur, rather than just making the argument for that point when it was over. Now, I understand his big case of argument and saying, well, it's already been 2 years. This should have already been in the game. But at the end of the day, what do you know of development, and what do I know of development, because I'm not a developer, and how long these things take? You have to understand too, their team, 200 plus members, is not a lot for a development team. For an MMO creator, they're not Blizzard. They're not the creators of Throne and Liberty. They're not Square Enix when making Final Fantasy 14. They're not at these big levels of, you know, massive people in their company with a lot of money and profit backing them. They didn't have, besides the money that Steven implemented, his 50 plus million, whatever he claimed, right? They didn't have a backing of game development with them. Yes, they had people from other games, but they didn't start off on making Ashes of Creation with 200 plus people. They had like 12 members or 6 members or something of that nature. So like I don't think that it's fair to say that these things need to be implemented at a faster pace because we expect it to be at that, you know, point. I think we have to be a part of the open development process and just take heed to what they're saying. And if you want to be a part of it, be a part of it. As Steven even said before, if you don't want to join it, don't join the alpha and just wait until the game is actually out and ready. So I think we just need to chill out.
The server meshing technology, that doesn't exist. There's no server meshing. There's no dynamic gridding. Well, sorry, there is server meshing. Let me correct myself. There is server meshing. There is no dynamic gridding. So they've advertised this whole thing that this dynamic gridding exists. Personally, I think that's Star Citizen copium, and there is no such thing as dynamic gridding. There is no such thing as dynamic server meshing. I just don't believe in that shit.
Why?
That feels like copium. Well, because it's technology that just feels like it's buzzwords that are trying to do something that's literally impossible. A dynamically shrinking and growing server. Show me it working. Show me it first. Stop advertising that it's going to exist.
Didn't they do that? It doesn't. Because the Star Citizen, they showed it with like throwing the ball back and forth.
Dynamic gridding and dynamic server meshing. No, I don't think that's ever going to exist.
Okay.
I don't know about that one. I don't believe in that one. I don't know about that one.
People are saying it is in the game. Yeah, of course I think it's going to happen.
So now he doesn't believe in technology and technological improvements within video games like dynamic gridding and server meshing. He doesn't believe in it. He said before, though, server meshing, he tried to correct himself, but he doesn't believe in dynamic server meshing. So I'm a little baffled. I'm a little confused at this point. Because listen, all it takes is just a simple Google lookup of what this is all about, watching some videos on it, maybe gaining some knowledge from it. You don't even need to be an IT expert or some type of like network server admin engineer to understand these things, right? You could just simply look some stuff up and just do some basic research, all right? I think this part of the argument has nothing to do with his takes. I'm more in favor of like the lack of communication thing, or how communication is displayed between Ashes of Creation and, you know, the community, and sometimes, you know, things can be like a little misconstrued here and there. I can understand that because no development team is perfect. People are going to make mistakes. That we could stay on topic of. To start talking about like fake tech theory, I'm sorry, I can't back that. And if any Narc supporter is in the comments saying that he's absolutely right, there's no such thing, brother. There's no such thing as this technology in games advancing. I don't know what you're smoking, but pass it over, brother. Settle down.
I want to make videos where I can express myself creatively. You used to watch my videos. You see my intros.
Yeah, no, I know.
I love that shit. I fucking love that shit, man. And I felt like for the last 2 years, I've been covering Ashes of Creation, and I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought the game was. I've misrepresented the game to a huge audience, and I feel extreme amounts of guilt from that. So I want to distance myself from the game and try and pursue something that I genuinely care about, which is just making entertaining videos. And unfortunately, in the format of Ashes, I just don't think I can do it because there ain't nothing here.
Now, here's the thing, man. If you want to just make content that's making you happy, just do that, man. I think none of your people that watch your channel or are supporters of you would hate that. They would love to see you be happy, man. I think people want to see you be happy, and I think you should be happy yourself. There's nothing wrong with you leaving Ashes of Creation or taking a break from it for a little bit, or even if you want to continue making it. It's all up to you. But do what makes you happy and makes you fulfilled in your life at the end of the day. As long as you as a man can, you know, take care of yourself and you're living your life and you're macking and you're, you know, progressing and you're doing okay and you got a roof over your head and you could still make videos that you are happy and proud about, go for it, man. Don't let anybody persuade you or trying to like trick you into doing anything that you want to not do, or you feel like you have to follow Ashes of Creation because you've been doing it for so many years. do what makes you happy, man. And I give you mad credit for wanting to like do whatever you want to do in your life, because that's a big step for you, and that's a big step for a lot of creators who want to, you know, change the course of what they're doing with their career to try something new. So honestly, there's no hate for me whatsoever with that. Do you, amigo?
And it's
well,
very.
You gotta remember that.
Yeah, go ahead.
You gotta remember that. But this, you gotta remember that Blizzard aren't charging $250 and slapping open development on their game.
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean,
well, I mean,
maybe not a great example.
He starts talking about how Blizzard isn't charging $250 and slapping open development. Yeah, I understand they're not slapping open development. They also have a much massive team, a bigger team than Ashes of Creation, and they have been a staple name in the gaming community for years now. I understand that. However, though, also the amount of required assets and technology at the time of making World of Warcraft in 2004 and 2005 during the early days is much different with Unreal 5 and what Ashes of Creation, Steven Sharif are doing with the team that he even had to start the project on, with the people that he had at the current time when they first started doing this, and the investments he put into the game without actually having any back-end development experience at all himself personally, and him going through the project for the past, 8 years and change to make something work of this game, right? So I think talking about the development cycle there and just development in general, we have to scratch that. That has nothing to do with Narc's actual problem with the game. I also think at the same time, you're talking about $250 from Blizzard. Let me tell you something, buddy. I've been a part of Blizzard games. I've all talked about the issues with Blizzards and the outrageous prices of their mounts and how Blizzard handles certain things in shitty ways. I know what that's like. Let's not go down that route of Blizzard pricing. Let's settle down and continue with the video, because that can lead to a whole Blizzard video I'm not trying to do.
Either way, I think that this entire problem is actually not even about the state of Ashes of Creation. I think it's more about for you.
No, it's not.
And forgive me if I'm overstepping, but I think this is for you. This is about you reaching a kind of a fork in the road with your YouTube and wanting to take your YouTube in a different direction and wanting to divert. Well, I feel like this is not true at all. I mean, you did say that at the end of the video.
Is it about me? Is it about me?
It doesn't. That doesn't invalidate what you're saying. It's not invalidating.
I think it's more about. I don't think it's about me. I think it's more about the fact that I don't agree with the misrepresentation of the state of the game. So the things that they've shown aren't an accurate representation of the game.
With the current state of the game that's playable to the public.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is what happens, right? So like, there's probably multiple versions of the game. So what I would assume is there's probably 3 versions of the game. There's the version of the game that we're playing. There's the probably internal testing version of the game, and then there's the dev version of the game.
Right.
And I feel like it probably exists inside of one of these other two. Like there's a friends and family alpha, and that usually a lot of people get friends and family alphas, but like they're like 99% of the time like NDA.
It's funny because that's what I built my whole channel off, right? I built my whole channel off of that exact copium that you've just said. I just don't think that's true.
So I find it interesting here because Asmon basically kind of hits a home run here. And honestly, he basically says what I've been thinking with the past, couple days of the situation going on, is that the problem is really not Ashes of Creation and how, the game is not eventually going to be worked upon and how the game is not eventually going to be finished, but really it's Narc. And Narc is really the problem to himself. And I really feel like Narc is even saying in the video, is the problem me? Is the problem me? I think he's conflicted with himself personally. And I can kind of see it. The more I hear him, the tone of his voice, the way he sounds, I kind of feel like the individual is at a stage of his life right now where he wants to do different things. He wants to entertain people. He's been saying it. Even in his last video, he's been saying it even throughout this interview, how he wants to express himself creatively, and how he wants to do different things that he used to do, and he feel like he's not getting that out of Ashes Creation anymore. And then he goes to say that, he doesn't really care about himself, which I don't think that's true at all. I mean, dude, you built a whole platform of a community that follows you and likes you, and you have a successful career. I feel like like there's a white lie there. And to be honest, I wish the best for him, man. I really hope that he decides to do whatever's next that's best for him to, grow as a person, grow as a content creator, and have a little bit more love for himself, because he seems like a good guy. I just think he's more conflicted with himself as a person and where he wants to pursue his life and his career, especially, rather than Ash's creation being this massive problem as he claims. And then he goes on like this tirade of basically saying that, all right, the game doesn't have multiple versions. He doesn't believe in other things that they are working on. There's no such thing of that as well, and how they are once again just not telling the truth, pretty much. Like he's implementing the fact that they are lying about any other clients or whatever that they are currently working on, and that this is the product that we're seeing right now. I think this is incorrect. Once again, I think the problem is that he doesn't have a general idea, nor do I, of what the process takes of MMO development. I also think he's not in the development team. He's just a content creator who didn't purchase the key. As he said earlier, he got handed the key and has been making content and has acquired himself a following ever since. And there's no hate on, making content based on copium or talking shit or making theories. I've done that with Season of Discovery. I know what that's like. Trust me. I've talked out of my ass and made videos on a daily basis with Sod. At a certain point when Sod is at an all-time high, I was cranking out content for Sod and just talking shit. So I get what that's like. But at the end of the day, you can't make these false claims of saying what's going on in the company. You don't have an idea of what's going on with Ashes of Creation besides playtesting it. That's the only thing you know. Any other open development and what they are doing to pursue the game and keep growing the game is completely on Intrepid Studios and what they're doing on their end. So to say you don't know if they have there's no such thing as other clients or stuff that they are working on is not entirely true, because that's how they are building their foundations to grow this game, by testing other things. They even mentioned in the past before that there are certain versions of clients that they are working on to test before we even get to those stages, to make sure things are working along the path. So this is stuff that they already discussed. So once again, I do have to disagree with Narc in this certain situation.
Because this is something that really rubbed me the wrong way with Pirate. Pirate was saying, Pirate, and he's not saying it maliciously or whatever.
Sure.
All he's doing is repeating what Steven said. Steven thinks that the alpha's going to last at least 1 year, right? They've stated that the alpha period is going to be much, much, much longer than the beta, right? The beta, my perception of the beta, at least from looking at the game, I think the beta when it launches is going to be feature complete and in a state where, it's basically, that's the marketing part, right? That's where they start marketing it in beta. At least from our perspective, we understand the speed at which Intrepid works. So what we've done is we kind of extrapolated that and tried to figure out how long it would take them to develop the whole video game, which includes those 18 biomes. And we think it's going to be a minimum of 6 years.
6 years from now.
Yeah, before they go into beta, I think. And that's
before,
assuming,
so that's even into beta.
Yeah, so that's assuming that's assuming that they launch with the beta after they have all 18 biomes. So that's just based on how much land mass they've got.
So at this point in the video, he basically explains his issues with Thor and how he kind of sounds similar to what Steven is saying. So Thor's basically reiterating what Steven has been, talking about in terms of where the alpha is going. He then believes that the alpha is going to last 6 years, I guess, and change with his viewers or whatever his guild or team that Narc has been coming up with. That's their prediction on when the alpha is gonna last that long before they even go into beta stage, because since they reworked everything from UE4 to UE5 and building upon those assets, obviously now the big change that they had to do at that time, it was a very controversial decision. They made the changes and now we've been in the UE5 state since then, and then obviously going to the roadmap, which we are now. So once again, he believes that that's what the alpha is going to last. I personally think that's incorrect. I don't think the alpha is going to last 6 years. I think we are going to be in a stage of where the alpha is going to last around another 1.5 to 2 years. And realistically, that the game with the beta, especially coming out at that point, is probably going to be a 3-year project. I think a 3-year project into finalized stage without issues, problems. Maybe they even hire more employees at that time too to grow their company as well. And, move the process along faster at that point. I personally believe that's a more realistic expectation than saying 6 years that this game is still going to be in alpha stages and they still have to grow upon things to make a lot of more, nodes and biomes connect, and there's no problems with it. And I know there's a lot of things that they have to do. Don't get me wrong. Even looking at the grand scheme of things, I think it's fucking crazy how big this game is going to be. I'm not going to ignore that. He also talks about the fact on how communication is somewhat poor from Intrepid Studios. I do agree with him in that sense, where I do think communication at times, the way things come across and how Steven, he really goes on these rants about a lot of things that they want to do with the game, but the way he goes about it at times, I think he puts a little bit too much dip on his chip. I'm not saying communication is poor whatsoever, but I do think things can be better described in terms of what's actually happening throughout the phases. And if things, go haywire, if there's a problem, I hope they communicate on those situations too within the Discord, Reddit threads, or even a live showcase, whatever they do. However, though, I can appreciate how active Intrepid Studios is. Steven does seem like a guy that is going to talk about a situation if there's problems arising, and he's going to be up forward about it, so I can at least appreciate that. So I can agree with Narc that I do think communication can still always be improved. That's never something I'm not going to disagree with him with. But at the end of the day, because I know there's been a lot of stuff going on in this video, they start to end off the conversation and talk about a couple other things, but it's really nothing serious. I just think that Narc needs to focus on Narc. That's all I believe what he needs to do, and then come back to Ashes when you're ready, man. That's all I would say. I think you're a great creator. I think, honestly, there's no need for a lot of this drama that's going on right now, and I hope the best between, you and Intrepid Studios, and I hope no bridges are burned, because I really think, you're a great, person for Ashes of Creation. A lot of people like your content, and it's a shame that, that this is situations happening in the first place, but it is what it is, and I hope you guys, also enjoyed this video, me giving you my opinions on how I feel about everything, and I hope you guys have, a damn good day. Much love to you. Keep on keeping on, all that good stuff, and locking in as always, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. I don't got a pull and spring in this situation. Damn, we're packed. Guys, my RAM module in my computer broke. I'm gonna need 20 years more worth of RAM to run Ashes of Creation, otherwise my ass is packed. Send me some RAM, bitch!